On this episode of Trucks and Junk, I'm going to show you how to go from this to this. Stay tuned to the end so you don't miss anything. Alright guys, just like any other time you're painting something or customizing something, the first thing you have to do is pull the thing apart. So I'm going to have to pull the whole front of this bike apart. Unfortunately, I won't show you guys how to pull the bike apart because each bike is going to be different in its own little way. So I'm just going to throw you guys in a time lapse. I'm going to pull the whole front of this bike apart and we will go from there. Alright guys, sorry for the mess today. It's raining outside, so I'm not really able to move everything out of the garage like I normally do. But what we're going to start with is the handlebars. So basically I want to black out the front of the bike, so I don't really want to buy black handlebars when I already have a good set of handlebars that are just chrome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the steps it takes to paint your chrome matte black or whatever color that you want to paint your handlebars. It is possible to do. You just have to do it a specific way for the paint to adhere to the chrome. So without further ado, the first thing you're going to do is make sure that your handlebars are completely clean. So what I did was I used mean green degreaser and soapy water and wash these down real good with the mean green. And then your next step is you're going to want to use 180 sandpaper. Okay, this is just fine enough to just make little scratches to where you don't show up in your paint, but aggressive enough to make the primer that we're going to use bond to these handlebars. So first thing we're going to do is sand it down. Now I already started sanding a little bit, so what you want to do is get rid of this shiny surface and get this dull surface throughout the whole thing. Okay, so how I do that is I just grab the sandpaper round like this kind of at an angle in your hand, and you just start as if you're revving the bike all over this thing, and then back and forth, and you just want scratches all over. You don't want the same motion in the same spot. You just want to all over. That way you have multiple scratches going in multiple different directions, and you just want to completely get rid of that shiny surface all over these handlebars, because if it's shiny, it's definitely not going to stick to chrome. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and sand these out, and then I'll show you the next step. So like you can see, this side is now all dull, this side is very shiny, and that's what you're wanting to go for, is the whole setup to be this dull on this side. But as you can tell, pretty much got rid of all the chrome. Now it's just a matte brushed look. So now that I've done that, all the chrome's on my hands. Alright guys, just like the chrome handlebars, the same thing with these aluminum pieces. You're going to use 180 grit sandpaper, and you're going to sand them down. Now you're not really getting rid of shiny, because aluminum ain't really shiny, but you want to make sure you sand it all down and give that primer something to adhere to, because it's the same concept. You don't want a shiny, smooth surface and expect something to stick to it, because it's made to be able to be washed. That's why it's so shiny and smooth. So it wants to let go of whatever you put on it. If you give it scratches, then the primer will adhere to it. Sanding is the #1 thing for any paint job, guys. You're gonna want to sand, because if you don't sand it, it's not going to turn out well. Your stuff's gonna chip off, fly off going down the road. Rain's gonna take it off, like, especially if you don't clean it. If you don't clean your product before you paint it, the dirt falls off, the paint goes with it, you know. So, like I said, prep work is the #1 thing to do with a paint job. That's why body shops charge so much, because of all the prep work they have to do to make their paint stick. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and sand all these parts and pieces that I plan on painting. Every one of them's the same. Your fork bases, your triple trees, your side covers, everything that you plan on painting, you're going to sand down with 180 grit sandpaper. And then once I got everything sanded and ready to paint, I'll come back. We'll have them all wired up and hanging from whatever we're going to hang them from, and then we'll start painting things. So, like I said, everything else is just going to be repetitive. Sand it down to where it's not shiny with 180 grit sandpaper. I'll see you all in a little while. Once you got everything that you're planning on painting sanded down and ready to hang, you're going to wipe everything down with alcohol and a rag, and then you're going to tack cloth everything down. So the first thing you're going to do is just wipe down the surfaces that you plan on painting, because you don't want any grease or oil on these parts at all. And you also want to wear gloves, because your fingers will put oil on the part. So just go ahead and wipe everything down that you plan on painting with alcohol and a rag. And I'm gonna go ahead and prep all my surfaces, and I'll see you when I'm ready to hang these. I like to hang my parts is I like to hang them to where there's little touches possible. So what I mean by that is I use wire to hang my parts. Okay, it's a solid wire, which means it'll bend and stay the way you've bent it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll cut me off a long piece just like this. All right, and then I'll put that out of the way, and then what I'll do is I'll roll up a knot on the end of it, kind of like this. Just roll it up, twist it up, roll it on top of itself. Just like that, to where it creates a big knot in the bottom of it to where it can't do nothing. And then I'll shoot for a hole. Okay, that's why you want to use a solid wire that you can kind of straighten out to help you shoot for something. So I know these have a hole in the bottom of them, so I'll shoot for that hole inside of here. Alright, and then once you've hit that hole, you can pull your wire through, and now your part's hanging. And you have nothing touching anything. So I can now paint this whole part, and nothing's touching anything to where I have to like turn the part over and hit that spot again or anything like that. And then once I've got it to that stage, then what I've done is I took that same kind of wire and I strand it from one side of the garage door rack to the other side of the garage door rack, and then now I can hang my parts from that wire. And now that part is hung there and ready for me to start spraying on it. And now I can move around the whole part, get down, get up, the whole thing with the paint to where I don't have to touch that part until it's done. So now you guys will want some maximum ventilation if you're doing this inside of a garage. So like I'll probably turn my AC off, I'll probably put a filter under my door, and I'll probably put a fan facing out that window and a filter on the other side of that fan. That way all of this air moves out of this garage and out back. So, all right, I'm gonna get the rest of these parts hung and I'll see you in a minute. All right, once you've got everything hung and ready for paint, the very first thing you're gonna wanna use is Rust-Oleum Automotive Primer Self-Etching Primer. The main reason you want to use this is because it has a chemical in it that bonds to whatever you put it on. So it wants to etch itself into the part. So as long as you've sanded everything down like I told you and used this, your paint should not fall off, because this is going to bond itself to the part, and then you're just going to be painting this on top of that. And then once you clear it, you're going to make a very strong bond. So when you put this on, you're going to want to do it in light dusting coats. Get about 50% coverage your first coat, the other 50% coverage on your second coat, and then put it on a little heavy on your third coat, and then let it dry. And I think it's only like 30 minutes between coats, so this don't take that long, guys. So you want to shake it up real well, follow the instructions on your can, and that's the first thing you want to put on it. This is the trick, this is the key whenever you're painting chrome or aluminum, is this primer right here, because this will make it bond to the part. All right guys, once you've got this good and shaken up, you're going to want to run a test spray on something just to make sure it's a good flat spray. And you're going to want to wear a respirator, and you're going to want to cover up anything you don't want to get overspray on, because this stuff will create a lot of overspray by the time you're done painting these parts. My garage, I don't really care if I get overspray on stuff, but I've covered up a few things just for, you know, example. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put my respirator on, and I'm gonna put my first coat on. For 100% coverage here on your first spray. The main reason why you want to do light coats is because if you do heavy coats, you'll end up with runs. Now the first coat I'm doing in the downwards motion. The second coat I want to get down and do in the upwards motion. That way you get 100% coverage when you do this stuff, guys. You'll want to be a good 1.5 feet, 2 foot away from the part too. You don't want to be right up on it when you're spraying, because that'll cause runs too. Alright, that's the first coat. I'm going to let it dry for about 30 minutes. We'll come back and we'll apply the second coat. Alright, after reading the instructions on the can, it said you should only allow each coat to dry for 2 minutes, doing 3 coats, and then allow it to sit for 3 to 4 hours. So, after your third coat. So now I'm gonna go ahead and apply the second coat, and if you haven't noticed, I put the fan in too now. I forgot to do that on the first coat. Alright, like I said before, on the first one, I was a downward spray on the first one, so I'm gonna do an upward spray on the second one. Alright, see you in 2 more minutes. Okay, now we're going to do the third and final coat. And on this coat, we're going to do it in both directions, up and down. That way we get full coverage and everything is a nice smooth surface. And this is going to be your heaviest coat. Alright, now we're going to let that dry for 3 hours. And then we'll apply our first base coat. Alright guys, it's been about 3 hours. So I'm going to put on my first coat of black. Now the paint of choice for this is this Rust-Oleum flat protective enamel. Superior coverage and durability. That's the type of paint that I'm going to use on this. You don't have to use this kind of paint. This is just what I prefer to use. So without further ado, I'm gonna throw on the first coat, and just like the primer, your first coat's just gonna be 50% coverage light coat, and then your second coat's gonna be a little bit heavier, and then your third coat would be even heavier than that. Same thing, guys, just over and over. Is that it? So this as well, you'll apply your second coat after 2 minutes. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Alright guys, this stuff covers so well, we're going to get away with 2 coats on this stuff of the paint. So I'm going to go ahead and throw on this second coat now, and then we're going to let it dry for 2 to 3 hours. Alright, I'm going to let it sit for 2 to 3 hours, and I'll see you all in a minute. Or in 2 to 3 hours, actually. Alright guys, this is something you don't see a whole lot on YouTube, but I'm going to do a flashlight test for you. If it'll focus. So I got the light on my camera. That's just to show you how nice that finish is turning out. You don't get that a whole lot on YouTube. This is before the clear coat. Like I said guys, I'm going to be doing a flat clear coat. So it's going to be flat black when it's all done. Which it's already flat black, it's just not protected right now. And I really wish that would focus better for you. There you go. So that's a flashlight test right there. No runs, no nothing. So you guys don't get that a whole lot on YouTube. Them getting up close and personal with their paint jobs like that. So alright. We'll let it sit another hour or 2, and then we'll do the clear coat. Alright guys, so it's been a couple hours. So at this point you want to make sure that everything is dry. You want to make sure there's no shiny, wet looking any areas on anything, because your clear coat will dry a lot faster, has a lot quicker flash point than this paint. So you really want to make sure that your paint is dry before you start your clear coating, because like literally when I say it has a lot quicker flash point, so basically you apply it every 2 minutes like the other paints, but the clear coat will dry to be able to handle this within 30 minutes. So if the paint is wet underneath the clear coat, it will take months to dry, and then you'll have issues with the paint peeling because it never cured properly. So at this point, you really want to make sure that your base coat is dry. But mine's dry, so I'm going to go ahead and apply my first coat of clear. So the clear coat that I'm choosing to use is matte clear enamel from Rust-Oleum. So everything I've used so far is the same make. It's all Rust-Oleum. The only thing that I use different is the automotive Rust-Oleum for the primer. But as far as the clear, I'm using the matte clear. So it's still going to look matte. It's still going to look just like that. But the thing of it is now it's going to be protected from sun rays and all the other stuff. It's not going to fade as quickly. It's going to be better weather resistant. So that's the only reason you apply this on top regardless, is because the clear coat is technically a protective layer for the paint. So without further ado, this is just like the paint, guys. You'll put it on with light coat at first, a little heavier coat on your second coat, And then these, you'll actually lay it on for the third coat if you really want to shine. But I'm not really going for a shine, guys. So, but if you're really wanting to shine and you're using clear, the third coat, you really want to lay it on because that's what gives you your glass finish. But I'm not really going for that glass finish. I'm going for that nice matte finish. So without further ado, I'm going to throw this on here. You really want to wear a respirator, guys, because this stuff is very harmful, very fatal to your lungs. Alright guys, it's been 3 minutes since I put the first coat on. Now I'm going to put the second coat on. And this will probably be my final coat because it actually did real well coverage. So I'm going to go ahead and lay it on pretty thick with this last coat. And then in 30 minutes from now, I should be able to handle these parts. Let that dry for 30 minutes. Let's see what we got. Okay, now that we've got everything painted and these forks back together, now if you guys want to know how to do the seals and to disassemble these forks and put these forks back together, make sure you guys check out last week's video because I went through step by step on how to break these down, reseal them, and put them back together. But in this video, I'm just basically showing you guys how to matte out or black out your guys' front end of your motorcycle. So basically we've got these back together. So your next step is going to be to put these rubber boots on the forks because that's what's going to matte out the bottom half of your fork to where to where your fork can bounce up and down still, because you can't really paint this down here because the seals will eat at the paint and so will the oil, and you can't vinyl this down here because the oil will eat at the vinyl and cause this to leak. So the only thing you can really do for the bottom half of these is this. So we basically clamp this to the bottom of the fork housing and clamp this right underneath the triple tree, so every time you hit a bump this bounces with it and this covers up the chrome. So you'll want to go ahead and put these on both forks, but you're not going to zip tie them down or anything yet. You're just going to stick them on there just like so. Okay, now at this point you're going to want to pay attention to what you're doing as far as what fork goes on what side of the bike. So I know that my brake caliper is on the left side of the bike, or the right side if you're looking at it. Okay, so I know that these two have to be on the left side of the bike. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and install the bottom of the triple tree. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and put this fork on the other side. Okay, Now, the main reason I'm doing this and going ahead and installing the bottom of this triple tree before I do the next step is these are a very tight tolerance, okay? So the holes drilled in these bottoms of these triple trees is such a tight tolerance that if I was to wrap these in vinyl already, which I did for the seal video just so people would see what it looked like as a blacked out fork, but then I went ahead and took the vinyl back off because I knew it wasn't going to work. But if you add the thickness of the vinyl and the glue to the top of this fork is not going to fit through here without spreading this wide open, which can also damage this by spreading it open. And this is what holds your forks from going up when you hit a bump. So you don't want to mess with that. Okay, so anybody who wraps the top of your forks with vinyl, just note that if you ever have to take your forks out to do seals, that vinyl's coming off because this will rip it off, or they're going to have to take it off to even get the fork to fit through this without damaging this. So I'm just going ahead and noting that now. You know, that's why you do it this way. So after you've done that, you're going to go ahead and set these up to the height that you're going to want them to be. So you're going to have to bring your top tree on, just like that. Same concept. And you're going to lock it in. Because now you want to know, you're going to want to set this up to the way that you're going to want it on your bike, is what I'm saying, guys. Okay? So you're going to want them locked in just like that. That way you know where your vinyl is going to start. And then you're going to cut your vinyl from here to here. And you're going to go ahead and wrap it. Now, I do believe that this is a softer metal on the top. So I'm going to try to wrap this all the way up to the top and see if this will go over top, at least the top, without tearing it up. But if it don't, we're going to have to cut it with a razor blade and peel the top half off. But that's where we're at now. Now I'm going to lock this down, this bottom tree, where I'm going to need it to be on my forks. And the way I measure that is, okay, I push at the bottom down here, and you can see how the whole fork moves inside of it, just like that. I'll just bring it right to the edge of the fork where the cap will start, and then I'll lock it down. So now that I got that where I want it, I'm gonna go ahead and lock it down. Oh, wrong way. Alright, so now that is locked down where I want it. Now I'm gonna do the other side the same way. Now those are both locked down right where I want them. Okay, so now you can remove your top plate. Just like so. You go ahead and remove that top plate and now lay these down. And now you can add your vinyl to the top of these without all your headlight and all that stuff in the way. So now I'm gonna get my vinyl cut, or I'm gonna measure for what I need for my vinyl, and I'm gonna get it cut and get ready to start putting that into place. Okay guys, the vinyl I'm gonna be using for the top of these forks is this smart vinyl from Walmart. It's made by Circuit, and it comes in a matte black finish, and it's actually really good quality vinyl. So I mean, it's not as good as 3M, but it'll do the job. It's actually pretty good and thick, but if you're trying to wrap things in vinyl, I don't recommend this vinyl, like as far as trying to stretch it over certain parts, because it will break easy because it's made to go in a little vinyl plotter from Walmart. So, but that's what I'm using for wrapping the top of these forks. It was $15 for this whole roll. and this whole roll came in 13 inches by 12 foot, so it's quite a bit of vinyl. Alright, so I went ahead and pre-cut it in some little pieces that'll wrap around the fork. Now, what you'll want to do is you'll want to use the factory edge that comes with the vinyl at the bottom of the fork, okay? And then you're going to go ahead and pre-test fit it to make sure everything's going to fit, okay? Because you don't want to start peeling it and then get it all the way wrapped around. You're like, oh man, it's not long enough, or whatever. So go ahead and pre-test fit it before you do it. So after you know that it's going to fit properly to the fork, you're just going to peel back one side of this, but just a little bit of that side, okay? So just like this, as if you're going to lay it all the way across the fork, okay? So just one side of it, just like that. All right, you're going to want to start your seam somewhere where you can't see it. So my thing on it is I will just flop my forks upside down just like this, okay? That way you know your seam is in the back. But I'd also do it kind of like to the inside of the back. That way you know your seam cannot be seen from the road. So I'm going to start it on the inside of the back of the fork, and I'm going to try to get it as straight as I possibly can with eyeballing it. And then I'm going to use a finger to just kind of start it across the fork there, okay? So now that you've done that, you started it on the fork just like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your thumb and you're just going to work it back and forth all the way around the fork, okay? And work out all of the bubbles, okay? Or your pointer finger, whichever finger you prefer to use. And you're just going to work it back and forth all the way around the fork. Just like so. And that's going to remove the backing for you. Just like this. Now, as you can tell, it is now vinyl all the way around that fork on the top there. I'll get you guys getting close. You notice I didn't use any soap or anything doing it this way, and there's no bubbles in this at all. And that's saying a lot, considering this fork was really damaged up here because of somebody putting in a device previously to do seals. So, but I'll bring you guys up close so you can see how that looks. Right down here. Like there's one little bubble right here, I think. But I can take that out with a heat gun. But that might be where that fork was in a vise, now to think about it. But as you can tell, that's a nice smooth vinyl finish on there. And you can't even tell like at the bottom of that. And then I'll cut this off at the cap. So, and like I said, the seam's in the back, so nobody will ever notice. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side and get this together, and I'll show you the finished results. Alright guys, welcome back. So now we're gonna throw this bike back together. So now when I left you guys off last week, I covered up the bottom of the forks using these accordion style boots. Okay, So I basically showed you guys how anybody can cover up the bottom of their forks by just ordering these boots and putting them on the forks. Unfortunately, I don't like the looks of these, so they're not going on my bike. Now that being said, I prefer the can style look on my forks, but unfortunately they don't make the cans for this year make and model bike. They do make cans for the Harley with the 41 millimeter forks, but when I looked up all the measurements and dimensions of those cans, I don't think they'll fit the Kawasaki. So that being said, I'm the type of person that if I want something and they don't make it, I make it myself. So what I've done is I 3D printed me a set of cans for my forks. Now I know not everybody out there can do this, but there is a lot of people on YouTube that will show you the basics of how to use a 3D printer, and I did these on Tinkercad, so they was not hard to make or design. That also being said, I'll leave it up to you guys, but if you guys give me the dimensions of your forks, there is a possibility I might start selling these on a website. You guys tell me what you think I should do if I should start selling these on a website. But now I'm going to show you what they look like. But the main reason I showed you guys the accordion stuff, because I wanted to be able to give you guys an option that you can just order online, throw on your bike, and black out your bike. But like I said, I wanted a different look, so that's my personal choice. Now what they look like is that right there, and you guys are like, well, what about the chrome in the center? When the bike's weight is actually on these, it's going to sit about right there, okay? So you won't see the chrome in the center anymore. And I've already tested them. They will not bottom out. So we're good. Okay? So when I put the weight of the bike down on these forks, these are going to come down anyway because of the weight of the bike. But if I brought these any taller, then these would bottom out. So that's why I left the gap in the center for when they're fully extended. But that's what they look like. So without further ado, now that everything's painted, everything's put back together as far as ready to go back on the bike, let's get it all back on the bike. Alright guys, for the sake of how long this video has already been, I'm just going to show you guys this bike put back together. And like I said, you know, you can't see the silver anymore when the bike's weight is actually down on the forks. But as you can tell, it's a whole new look. I've got it all back together and it's ready to go for a nice ride. But this is a whole brand new look to this bike. It's about as beautiful as it can get. Now, that being said guys, I painted this as well, A lot of stuff is painted. I vinyl wrapped these because I know it's going to have a lot of wear on it. I painted these here on the edges, painted the handlebars, painted the headlight bucket, painted the headlight frame, painted the forks, fork housings, vinyl wrapped the top of the forks, 3D printed these covers here. Like I said guys, I don't think that you guys can buy cans for every bike out there. I just personally prefer the can look, so I printed these for myself. But those squishy stuff guys work fine. Like, I just personally don't like the look of it. So if you guys want to just cover them up with the squishy things and call it a day, so be it. You know, I'm just, my personal thing is I don't like the look. But if you guys are seriously considering a cell phone mount for your bike, this one here from Jail Room, I got it off of Amazon, and that thing, man, it holds the phone. I was going down the interstate at a good cruising speed, and my phone didn't even think about coming off of there. So that's actually a really good phone mount, guys. If you're thinking about getting one, just order one off of Amazon. It's awesome. But other than that guys, I think I'm gonna call it a day on that. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed watching that video. I mean, I hope you guys got a lot out of it, a lot of helpful information to help you guys get your bike along or looking good. Let me know if you guys want me to start printing some things like that and throwing them on a website, maybe doing a little custom things here and there, pre-order stuff, but I'm not going to overwhelm myself with it. I just hope this motivates you guys to get out there enjoy stuff a little bit. Pick up some stuff that's down and not looking very good. You can turn it around and make it look very beautiful and custom. So I hope it motivates you guys to get out there and do some things. And as far as that goes, God bless you all. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Get out there and do something. See you on the next one.